Hey, welcome to another episode of Electrical Theology, Esoteric Life Coaching. My name is Charles, and here we talk about taking responsibility for our thoughts, actions, and emotions, because that is the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, to opening you up to the universe and the dimensions and realms beyond our own earth-based realms. But it also helps you in your everyday life. We can get all up in the esoteric, we can get up in the realms, dimensions, portals, aliens, we can get into all that stuff, but if we cannot deal with our everyday daily life, or if we don't know how to manifest the life we want, or be able to interpret what we are experiencing, then it's hard to even fathom what's beyond your earth existence. So yes, it's fun to be out there in the ethers, but information I'm giving you is also the micro information that's pertinent to our lives here in our health, wealth, and love, or our mechanical, chemical, electrical life. All right. This week we're going to continue on the remote viewing. Last episode we talked about remote viewing. We talked about the esoteric meaning of remote viewing. Yes, there is physical remote viewing where you can tap in out there in the world, universe, and see different things, but there's also a chemical and electrical component to it, or a mental and spiritual aspect to it. Right? We can physically tap into someone, observe it with our physical senses or even our intuitive senses, but it goes way beyond that into the other dimensions. And if you aren't familiar with the other dimensions, then you can get viewings from different places, but you'll be limited on what you understand of what you're seeing. That makes sense? So with the mechanical, chemical, and electrical remote viewing, and understanding that it's just re-mote or removing or moving ions, or again moving the ions, then we are the ions, so it's a matter of placing our consciousness into those ions. Now, we've also talked about the realms and how the realms are broken. They're just they're continual spiraling energy, and we break them down into grids, into 9 grids of 3, 6, and 9s. And we'll go into that a little bit today, not too deep though. I'm trying to keep these videos short, but they just seem to go a little longer. So if they're a little too long for you, let me know. We'll break them up, one episode into 2 or 3 episodes, if that helps you comprehend what's going on. But we are dealing with the realms. This is just a snapshot of the universe, of the realms. And what we need to understand, that each one of these realms are a access point, or a mediumship connected point to other realities or realms. And again, when I'm saying reality, realms, dimensions, it's all the same to me, but because we hear these different terms all over the place, in one sense, yes, they're sort of have their own uniqueness, but again, everything is just electricity, coming from that to this, to Shambhala, hierarchy, and God, and the seven consciousness. So each one of these, look at these as the connecting points, as a old operating system. Now, if you're not old enough to remember, I'm barely old enough to remember, but in the old operating system days, you would have a building that had operators in it. And if you needed to make a phone call from your house, you would tap the receiver a few times, and that would connect you to an operator. And it was the operator's job to take a plug out of the operating board and then plug you in, take another cord and connect it to the person. So they were the medium. They were able to connect two things together. And so each one of these are a plug-in point, if you will, and you need the right plug. Just like the old operators used to do it, they would take a plug out of the board and then plug it somewhere else and plug it. And this is how people used to communicate. And what I'm teaching you just right now is just the introduction, just the sort of physical, mental aspects of it. So it may sound intricate to some of you, but it may seem very simple to some of you as well. But again, this is just the intro stuff. So the way I'm describing it is very simple, but eventually, once you take away all the excess words that we don't need to use, because we're sort of saying the same thing over and over, dimensions, realms, portals, gateways, doors. This is all the same stuff. So when you eliminate every single one of those words or descriptions, you're left with a flow of energy. And so each one of these are a wavelength, and you have to adapt your wavelengths to theirs. So if you're only 110 and they're 220, then you have to speed up your wavelength to match theirs, and they at the same time can slow theirs down a little bit so y'all meet somewhere in the middle. And that's what the mediumship does. So understanding remote viewing, understanding that each one of these realms that we're talking to are not only connections, right, connecting ions to other dimensions ions, it's also understanding that who you are, who your body is, who your mind is, who your spirit is, or who the biomechanical, the biochemical, and the bioelectrical suit that you're wearing, and the energy, the soul, spirit, whatever you want to call this, inside you, inside this shell, is all windings. It's all wound up. So everything we're talking about, all these different portals, realms, and stuff, are you. They've just been wound up. They're all separate. They're 100 separate places, but they've all been coiled together, or in that spiral that we talked about early on. And you are a part of that, just like the cup of the ocean is the ocean, right? And so each one of these windings are you. But if you don't understand, then you get wound up too much, and then that wound turns into a wound, right? It's the same spelling. So you're too tightly wound. So we have to unwind. And that's what we talk about, unfolding the moment, right? And getting to the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is opposite of antimatter, right? And then we have to understand what matter is in a esoteric form, not necessarily a human science form, but from an esoteric, electrical realm perspective. So we talked then about understanding remote viewing by observing first position, second position, and then third position. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, go back to the last 2 or 3 videos and I explain this in detail. And understanding this was a practice in helping you begin to try or buy or quad locate in different realms at the same time, right? Or be able to communicate with yourself and others, or be in touch with yourself as you're being in touch with someone else while you unfold that heart in that same space, right? And then we talked sort of about the cautions of the caveat emptor of precautions of the cause, the residual effects of portal traveling, conscious traveling. It is electricity, but you'll still end up with residuals, or your flesh body may encounter some residuals or resistance. We don't want to name those resistance. We just want to be aware that it's just a resistance or material left over from the connection as being the medium. Much like a boat, you take it out of the ocean, it's going to have residuals left of that ocean. Right? So your vessel is going to have residuals of that cosmic sea in it. And then we talked about a little bit about what remote viewing really is from an esoteric standpoint. Yes, there's a physical stuff that certain institutions and societies use to spy and do stuff with other people, but that's not what I'm talking about. That is part of it, but it's not what I do, at least not anymore. Because again, I'm my own person. I don't do or any longer side with anyone else's agenda other than my own. And then we started talking about the portals. And one that we can add to this, and I've said it before in the other videos, is that it's an opportunity. So an opportunity is a port for unity. The port and the unities in that word, just like communities. So the port for unity is aligning with these ports. Just as you go to the ocean, you get on an ocean liner, you have to, the vessel has to be in a port. At different ports around the world. And on the ships themselves, they have little port holes. Right? So this word is going to be key to when we start transmitting, being the medium, being able to open up to these energies. And again, the more you open up, the more you're going to get a bigger picture of who you are and how now you can use some of these same abilities that you're learning here with your health, wealth, and love in this life. How to make your relationships better, how to make your finances better to what you want them to be, and how you want your health to be, whatever that is for you. All right? So where we're going to focus today, basically, and this is where we're going to start opening the portals. So we started in here, understanding the portals. We practiced being able to not only be here and understand what our shell is, that our consciousness is not our shell in one sense. We can step out of our shell and step into other shells or other atmospheres, we'll call it that. So in this one, we still have sort of the same stuff. It's still the same realms, right? And again, we deal with the main 7 realms. The 8th and 9th realms are a little more technical, or the heart has to be open a little wider for you to receive, because the heart's sort of the place where the energy comes in, amongst all the other energy centers of the body. But the heart is the one that is the biggest filter, we'll put it that way, for electricity or other energies, because it's going to indicate to you electrically through your synapses and your emotions that, hey, it's the power of discernment. So it's going to give you the ability to know that, okay, this one's safe for you to open in. And I don't mean that someone's going to take advantage of you. It means that electrically it's safe, right? If a big old fence is electric, 220 volts, you don't touch it. And so the 8s and 9s, we got to have a lot more foundation. We have to have some practice behind us before we touch the 8s and 9s in one sense. We can understand it philosophically, theoretically, but to put it into practice is a little bit more. So the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, magenta, clear. But it's the same thing up or down. We talked about the charts before, the big dimensional charts I showed you in videos past. Look up that video. But let's just for a moment talk about opening these portals. This grid that you have here, each one of these fit in. There's a blue little grid, right? One of these little grids, we talked about the macro grid before, the big black and white ones I showed you that are pretty big. So one of these grids, or all these grids, if you will, are just motherboards that are filled with the components and constituents of the mechanical, chemical, and electrical that is both part of the universe, but because you're part of the universe, it's also part of you. So understanding each one of these helps us navigate and negotiate our own life. So when we talked about who and how are you, and we began to what moves you last video. This one we're going to start talking about what are you open to now. And then this whole episode is about opening up. So what do you open up to, or what are you ready to open up to? What do you open up to? Is your mind open? Is your body open? Right? And what does that mean for you? So in essence, each one of these grids, as we've talked about, we deal with the 3, 6, and 9s. Now, I don't talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did talk about 1 and 2 when it came to first position and second position. But as we get into multidimensional, we have 9 positions we can be in, right? Or 12. Each one of these can, again, there's no limited number. It's all unlimited. What I'm doing is just taking a snapshot of the universe to teach you just the snapshot. But once you understand one grid, you understand all the rest of them. Or at least you have access to all of them. That makes sense? Much like buying a 3-day pass for Disney, right? Once you get one pass, you have access to all the other universes, universe studios and such. And we can see that in order to open these portals properly and open yourself properly, and we talked about incrementally open yourself up, emotionally, physically, spiritually, so you have to have somewhat a decent health. You have to have a certain amount of freedom from debt-based systems. It doesn't mean you need to be rich. It means you need to understand what the debt-based system, the Keynesian economics, means. If you don't, look that up. And we're more of the Austrian economics, which is incentivization. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can look up stuff with cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin. I'm not going to go into it, but those are financial systems of freedom that the government cannot touch. There are aspects of that they are trying to get their hands in, but they can't stop Bitcoin. All the rest of them, they can be regulated, stopped, restricted, get all your information and ID, and that's all they're after because they want to control you. This system that I'm teaching you is for those beings here that are on this earth, for whatever reason you came here on this earth in this dimension. Some call it a prison, some call it a rehabilitation center, Some call it a very rudimentary, primal, growing ground for this species called human. And whatever your definition of this is just going to be what you think yourself is internally. Right? I don't think it's a prison. I don't think it's a rehabilitation. Now, I've explained these things in different classes and seminars I've had. So it just depends which one you may feel that you are part of. Right, so let me give you an example of what I mean here. So if you're standing in a room and that room is all white and there is no doors or no windows, it's just a light over your head. Give me 4 adjectives, right? Describe that in 4 words, what that means, right? I'm not going to tell you any words. I want you to figure that out for yourself. If you're in a white room with no doors and a window and only a light over your head, describe that. 4 adjectives, 4 descriptions. All right, I'll give you a couple seconds. Now, once you've written these down, look at them closely. Now, are they restrictive? Are they open? So what this psychological test does is show you what your view of the afterlife, after this life, will be. Right? Because I didn't give any more details than it's a white room. I didn't say how big, right? I just said that there's no rooms or that there's no doors or windows. There's just the light over your head. So the light represents a divine being. The white rooms is what we see as heaven. If someone's picture of heaven is all white. And there's no doors or windows because it's wide open. Right? And so if you find it to be restrictive, constricted, suffocating, right, then your version of the afterlife are those things, and that's who you are in this life right now, because you're the one who came up with those definitions. Just by hearing an external energy, you then had a thought of what that is, and that thought's built upon a past experience or event. So if that is the case, then you have to ask yourself, why are you being restrictive? So knowing that knowledge now is that you can be unrestricted, you can be unlimited, you can be free. Right? And that's what this esoteric theology is about, is having the understanding to get yourself out of where you don't want to be. Present state to desired state we've talked about over and over. So hopefully that's an exercise to just give you an idea of who you are, what you are, and where you're coming from, right? That was our first indication. Well, who and how are you? Then what and where motivates you, right? So if you're not motivated because of an indoctrination or belief system or the ego, again, belief systems are built on the past. So if you're stuck in the past, then you're limited in what you're open up to. So this whole class here today is about opening up. And we have to open up by the heart. How open are you? Right? How ready are you for change? So we've talked about Shambhala. This is the 9s, right? And we're going to be talking about these beginning realms, right? These simple realms: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then it's another octave. 8 means octave. Octave means 8. Nove 9. So the interpretation, so we have a life experience, and that's where the energy's coming in. So however you first create a thought, the thought comes from nowhere, and then all of a sudden you start building this energy, and it becomes a thought. So once you get the thought, then we have that interpretation we talked about, which is going to be the realm 8. And these are higher dimension beings. This is a different realm of electricity. These beings have been around, we'll just say billions of years to give it a number. And out of that interpretation, we talked about the meaning, and then we end up with the effect of that meaning. And so now we're in the hierarchy, because now we're starting to arc our thoughts. We're starting to give it power. We're starting to cycle it. We're starting to loop it. Right? This is how no thing can be something. This is how your shell got woven or weaved. Right? And then you have the cause, behavior, habits, habitat, and then outcome. So where you're living is your habitat, and that's here in the mental realm, because it's your mental thoughts that are keeping you stuck. So again, are you open? Right? Are you ready to access and connect and commune with something bigger than you? Are you ready to serve this community beyond your own needs? right? One, we have to meet our own needs. We have to make sure our health, wealth, and love is good. But from an other standpoint, we can't serve other ones fully unless we ourselves are full of joy, full of light. Each one of these realms here are just one of these realms. All that I stuck in there. So each one of these are a building block. So we have to start with the physical, and within the physical, mental, and spiritual, to accomplish certain openings. We have to take on more missions in our life, meaning more experiences. We have to put ourselves out there where you're at, which is the esoteric. And once you understand the physical, in this realm, the physical realm, you have to go through the physical stage, then the mental stage, and the spiritual stage. And each one of these, and we're not going to break it down that far, unless you want to. For me, it's just, on the physical realm, you have your health, wealth, love. Health, wealth, love in the mental, and health, wealth, love in the spiritual. So on the health side, do you need to eat better? Are you feeling your greatest? Do you need to get out and exercise more? What is this physicality? In the physical mental, are you good at setting goals or agendas, or say, okay, I want to walk 3 miles today. I want to go meditate for 5 minutes. This is all physical based. And spiritual based is read some sutras, right? Read some Vedas, right? Read the Bible, whatever this is for you. Now, on the mental stage, we have to go through each one of these. So that's why I say I'm not going to go break it down, and it doesn't matter that we need to break it down. The more you begin to develop and the more discipline you have to open up and have a better life and have more money, if that's your point, or have better health or love relationships or better relationships, then we have to begin to open up with discipline. And as we get this discipline, then we have more knowledge gathered from that discipline. And then from that knowledge, we gain more discipline. And that discipline leads us to understanding. And then that understanding, again, leads to awareness and then insight. Right? The insight stage starts getting you to unfold yourself. And that unfolding is opening the doorway or the key or the portal. Right? So then you start opening with what's already in you, but you're beginning to activate it. You initiate it. This is where you're the initiate of your own order. You're no longer a probee. You're no longer a probationary. Or probation, meaning probing the ions. You're actually committing, choosing these ions that you're willing to open up and gather more information. Make sense? Awesome. So that's going to about do it today, as far as just understanding that we're still working on the transmission. Who are you? Talk to yourself. Understanding that when you open up to these portals, it's just different frequencies, different beings work off of these frequencies. If you want to, we can look at each one of these as one of the families, the galactic families out there. We can say, okay, these are the Atlanteans. 2 is the Orions. 3, it's the Lemurians. 4 are the Arconians. 5 is the Pleiades, and so on and so forth. So we can name each one of these, but it's sort of irrelevant. Right? When I'm contacting, if they want me to know their name, if they want me to know their distinguished frequency or names or what the name of their houses or whatever, or their town, that's going to be on them, right? It's irrelevant that I know that information unless it's relevant that I know that information. But I don't seek that, because in the realms, you only have so much time, again, because your body only has so much physical adaptation it can do before it starts burning the shell up. And then you'll have adverse effects, right? Because you're going against the verse. We want to be with the flow. And if that means we can only stay, especially at these higher realms, you can only stay maybe seconds, maybe 5 seconds, but you'll get downloaded libraries of information. And so look at this as a calling card, an old school, on a cell phone where you had to get minutes, you had to buy your minutes. Well, let's say down here you can only buy 10 minutes, or in here you can only buy 2 minutes, and here 1 minute. And if you have a message that you want to get out to someone, then you either got to talk really fast, right, or ask specific questions that are pertinent or relevant to your life here. If you're going out to these realms, is you can ask them, get to know them just like you would anyone on the street. Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. I appreciate you showing up, all that good stuff. And then ask them, say, hey, is there any information you would like to impart to me about your civilization? We'll just call it that. And just be quiet and allow them now to communicate. You have to be open to hearing them. Be the medium. So begin to open up, and don't try to get it right or don't make it into words necessarily. Just be in that moment, that unfolding moment, and allow that energy to come in, and it will translate into your biorhythms, your bio knowledge, your bio vocabulary, so it makes sense to you. Right? Don't try to force it. Don't try to make sense of it yet if you don't understand it, or if you even think you didn't get anything, because depending if you're in the lower realms, then it's going to take a longer time to process, much like uploading a video to YouTube. Depending on how big the file is, it's going to take a little longer. So if you haven't been used to opening up to these bigger files, then it's going to take a little longer to adapt to your body if you're open. Are your cells open? Did you tell your cells, I'm open to receive this new energy, this new knowledge, this new conversation? So in the dreams, it may come and unwind and unfold itself, so it doesn't over-activate your circuits, right? Or you may get an intuitive hit, or you may see something that is a reminder of this, right? So each one of these are just different families, and there's millions of billions of these guys. I mean, each realm is another family. And I can keep just going this dimension, that big giant picture I showed you, I don't have it pulled up here. But it has the square, and then that square becomes a million squares, and that million squares become another million squares. And that's all the different families, portals, families out there in the galactic realms, dimensions, whatever you want to call them. And these are the doorways that we can access them. But by accessing these guys, it's also going to help you access yourself. So by having to being open to accessing something bigger than you, it opens yourself to the bigger part of you. Makes sense? Because we're from the same ocean. Okay? So hopefully that's making sense to you guys. That'll be it for today. Hopefully this is a shorter video. Like I said, I'm trying to make shorter ones, but if you like them longer, let me know. I will. But I appreciate you hanging out with me. Hopefully this is making remote viewing a little better, and that remote viewing or moving energy and observing energy and participating with that energy, mediumship that energy, right? It's all about the energy. So I'm teaching how to harness that energy. I can't control the wind, but I can harness it into windmills, as the old saying goes. All right? I appreciate you hanging out. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, guys. I'll really appreciate that, and look forward to the next video. See you.